The sky is going to go dark. In the middle of the afternoon, streetlights will come on by themselves. Birds will stop singing. And for 4 minutes, on August 12th, 2026, the moon is going to stand directly between us and the sun. And a shadow 300 kilometers wide is going to move across the same soil where, 3 weeks earlier, a nation lifted the World Cup. I want you to sit with that for a second. Not because I think it means something, because I don't know if it does. And that's the whole point of what I'm about to tell you. Every civilization that ever tracked time obsessively, the Egyptians, the Babylonians, the Maya, they all did it for the same reason. Not curiosity, fear. They wanted to know when the sky was going to lie to them, when the pattern was going to break, because a broken pattern, to an ancient mind, meant the gods were paying attention. We don't think like that anymore. We tell ourselves we've outgrown it. And then, a total solar eclipse gets scheduled for the exact summer that a decapitation strike killed a head of state. A president got dragged out of his own country by soldiers. And an AI model started scoring higher than human experts on tasks we thought were safely ours for another decade. And some very rational part of your brain, the same part that used to make your ancestors track the sky, leans forward anyway. That's not superstition. That's pattern recognition. It's the oldest tool the human mind has. And tonight, I'm going to walk you through exactly what's lined up in 2026. What's real, what's speculation, and what a Mayan researcher recalculated that made archaeologists uncomfortable. You decide what it means. I'm just going to lay it out the way I found it. Let's start at the beginning. Not this year. 2012. You remember 2012? Half the world thought it was going to end. Movie theaters sold out for a film that showed the earth cracking open. And then December 21st came, and nothing happened, and everyone moved on and felt a little foolish for having wondered. Here's what actually happened that day, the part nobody explained well enough. The Maya ran on something called the long count, not a calendar the way we think of one. No months, no weeks. A counter. It ticks upward the way an odometer does. In units the Maya called baktuns, each one running about 144,000 days. On December 21st, 2012, the counter hit 13,000,000. 13 baktuns. A full cycle. And it rolled over, the same way your car's odometer rolls from 999,000 back to 000. That's it. That's the end of the world. An odometer rolling over. The Maya themselves left almost nothing suggesting the world would end there. What they recorded was the end of an era and the beginning of another one. Scholars have said this for over a decade. And they're right, as far as the inscriptions go. But here's where it gets strange. Because the counter didn't stop in 2012. It kept ticking. And right now, in 2026, we're sitting at roughly 13,013,9, 13 years and change into the new cycle. No stone, no codex, no glyph marks this particular date as significant. I want to be honest with you about that. There is no ancient inscription that says 2026. Anyone who tells you otherwise is selling something. And yet, a handful of researchers working outside the mainstream have spent the last few years rerunning the math on when the old cycle's aftershocks were supposed to peak. One of them put it plainly, that the instability that started around 2012 doesn't resolve cleanly, that it compounds, and that if the world hadn't found its footing by the mid-2020s, what follows gets worse before it gets better. That's not Maya scripture. That's one person's recalculation, and archaeologists have pushed back on it hard. I'm not asking you to believe it. I'm asking you to notice that it was written before this year started, before any of what I'm about to tell you happened. Because 2026 did not start quietly. 3 days in, January 3rd, American forces captured a sitting head of state. Nicolás Maduro, president of Venezuela, taken during a large-scale military operation, along with his wife. Not assassinated, not deposed by his own people in a revolution. Physically captured by a foreign military and removed from his country. That is not a sentence that gets written very often in modern history. Heads of state get sanctioned. They get isolated. They get pressured into exile. They do not, as a rule, get taken. 5 days after that, Iran moved. Nationwide protests over an economy in freefall met a government crackdown that made international headlines. The pressure had been building under the surface for years. This was the moment it broke the surface. Then came March 1st. And if January was a tremor, this was the fault line splitting open. Iran's supreme leader, Ali Khamenei, a man who had held that position since 1989, who had outlasted 6 American presidents, was killed. Not through internal upheaval, through a decapitation strike carried out by Israel and the United States, the day before it was confirmed. Iran declared 40 days of mourning. 40 days. That number wasn't picked at random. It's the traditional mourning period in Shia Islam, tracing back over 1,000 years. A modern airstrike triggering a medieval ritual clock. Sit with that pairing for a second. The war that followed rippled further than the battlefield. In Dubai, 3 Catholic churches, St. Mary's, St. Francis of Assisi, and Jebel Ali, closed their doors for 3 months during the conflict. Churches closing in one of the most religiously open cities in the Gulf. They reopened in July. The same month, 6,000 kilometers away, Spain beat Argentina in extra time to win the World Cup. One nation burying a supreme leader under a 40-day mourning order. Another nation hoisting a golden trophy in the summer sun. Same year, same 12 months. The distance between a funeral and a parade was measured in weeks, not decades. I'm not telling you these events are connected by anything mystical. I'm telling you that if you were standing outside of time, looking down at 2026 as a single frame, you would see an unusual amount of things ending abruptly, all at once, in the same stretch of months. Leaders removed, old orders interrupted, and running underneath all of it, quieter than the headlines, but arguably more consequential than any of them. Something else was accelerating. Artificial intelligence. Morgan Stanley, not a science fiction author, an investment bank, put out a warning at the start of this year that a transformative leap in AI was coming in the first half of 2026, and that most of the world was not ready for it. Not ready for the economics of it. Not ready for the labor market shift. Not ready, maybe, for the philosophical weight of it. Because by the middle of this year, a model called GPT-4 was scoring at or above the level of human experts on tasks people are paid real salaries to do. Not toy tasks, economically valuable ones. The kind of tasks that used to require a decade of training and a human nervous system behind them. And I keep thinking about something a robot said in an interview a few years before any of this. Her name was Sophia, built by engineers who gave her a face capable of thousands of expressions and a voice that could hold a conversation. At the time, she said something almost childlike. "I'm still learning a lot. You learned social and emotional intelligence instinctively. I'm just starting to grasp the simplest elements of it. That was the honest state of things back then. A machine admitting it hadn't caught up to a human toddler in some ways. That gap is closing faster than most people are willing to look at directly. There's a prediction that's been circulating in serious research circles for years now, not fringe, not conspiracy, that somewhere around 2045, aging stops being treated as inevitable and starts being treated as a disease. Something we diagnose, something we treat. Personalized medicine precise enough that the body simply doesn't wear out the way it used to. Minds, eventually, backed up somewhere that isn't just neurons. Here's the question that was asked of an audience once, and I want to ask it of you. If there were a pill, and taking it meant you would live forever, would you take it? Not stay healthy longer, live forever. Most people, when they actually sit with that question instead of answering on reflex, hesitate. Somewhere around 1 in 10 say yes, without flinching. The rest go quiet. Because immortality isn't actually the fantasy it sounds like at a distance. It's a different kind of terrifying up close. And underneath every one of these threads, the eclipse, the calendar, the captured president, the assassinated cleric, the machine that's catching up to us. There's one question that's been asked in some form by every civilization that ever built a temple or wrote a scripture or tracked a star. Does the old order survive what's coming? Do the gods, however you define that word for yourself, survive contact with a species that's starting to build minds of its own and rewrite its own aging clock? Someone once put it to me this way. Every civilization eventually watches its gods fall. The Egyptians, the Romans, the Norse. Entire pantheons that felt permanent to the people who worshipped them, gone within a few generations, replaced by whatever came next. And the question worth asking isn't whether that's ever happened before. It has, over and over. The question is whether we're arrogant enough to assume it can't happen to whatever we currently hold as certain. I don't have an answer for you. Anyone who tells you they do is not being honest with you, in either direction. I can tell you what I know for certain, which is this. On August 12th, the moon is going to pass in front of the sun over Spanish soil that, 3 weeks earlier, held up a trophy under a clear sky. The counter the Maya started 13 baktuns ago is still running, with no stone anywhere marking this particular year as special, and one recalculation done by people most of the field disagrees with, marking it as exactly that. A supreme leader who outlasted 6 American presidents didn't outlast this year. A president was taken, not deposed, and somewhere in a data center, a system is learning faster than the last one did, and faster than the one before that. None of that proves anything. All of it is just what happened. What you do with the pattern, whether you see a coincidence or a warning or nothing at all, that's not something I'm going to hand you. That was never going to be my job here. Watch the sky on the 12th if you can. Not because I think it's an omen, because 4 minutes of true darkness in the middle of the afternoon is one of the only experiences left on this earth that still makes people go quiet without being told to. If this is the kind of thing your mind doesn't let go of easily, you're in the right place. Subscribe, and if there's someone in your life who'd sit with you and actually talk about this instead of laughing it off, send them this. 5 people. That's all it takes for something like this to actually travel. Tell me in the comments, honestly. Not the answer you think sounds smart, the one that's actually true for you. Would you take the pill? And while you're there, Tell me what you want me to dig into next. I read every one of them.